Today, I've got a smart and effective way for you to memorize new vocabulary in any language. This method will change the way you learn new words if you don't use it already. If you're new here, ciao amici. My name's Matthew. I used to work for Fluent Forever, where I was mentored by the American polyglot and best-selling author Gabriel Weiner. Since branching out on my own, I've realized that I just still love learning languages. So I've developed my own tools and techniques, and I'd love to share them to help you too. Alright, let's dive in. Today, we're talking about a smart and effective way to memorize new words, and that is through sentences and context. So what do I mean by learning words in a sentence? It's pretty simple actually. Instead of memorizing individual words in isolation, you learn them as part of a sentence. This helps you understand how the word is used in real life. So these new words become easier to remember. When I say learning new words in context, what I mean is trying to understand the background or situation where the word is used. Now, there's actually some research that supports the idea of using sentences and context to learn and memorize new vocabulary. There was a study that was published in the American Educational Research Journal. It found that language learners can often infer the meaning of unfamiliar words just by examining the context of that word. Learners can use the other words within the sentence that a word appears, along with the overall situation, in order to learn new words. This makes learning new vocabulary more intuitive and natural. Let's now get into 4 tips to help you memorize new words using sentences and context. 1. Write words in a sentence. When you come across a new word that you want to learn and memorize, you can then write that word within a sentence in order for you to learn it a lot better. You might not need to do this sort of thing for very concrete words or words that explain something simple and physical, like a dog or a cat. But I find that writing words in a sentence for very abstract words or grammatical words can be very helpful to memorize them. Abstract words refer to ideas or things that you really can't see or touch. For example, in French, there is the abstract word croyance, which means belief. Now, it's hard to really see or touch a belief. It's not very concrete. So learn it in a sentence, such as cette croyance est irrationnelle, which means that belief is irrational. With that kind of sentence, I think you'll really be able to memorize croyance a lot better. Now, grammatical words help show the relationships between words in a sentence, and they too can be difficult to memorize without a sentence. These more functional words are important for sentence structure, but they don't really add much content to that sentence like an adjective or a noun or a verb could do. Grammatical words could include articles like the or conjunctions such as but. It's really hard to put a picture in your mind of what these things are because you can't touch them or see them. So again, it's useful to use sentences and context for these grammatical words. In Spanish, there's the words desde que, which means since. You can put that into a sentence to help you memorize it better, such as ya ha pasado un año desde que nos vimos, which means it's been a year since we've seen each other. Trying to learn desde que within that sentence is a lot easier because now you can see how desde que is used to form relationships between the words in that sentence. 2. Write words with collocations. Collocations are words that often go together, and when you're learning a new word, it's useful to learn all the other words that are often shown with that new word. For example, in English, if you want to learn the noun living, you often don't just learn that word living. It's better to learn it through the collocation of make a living. The combination of those words give a new meaning, and just the noun living on its own really doesn't make sense. This combination of words is useful to learn together because in English we don't say to make the living, nor do we say do the living. To make a living is a set collocation, and together they mean to earn enough so you can buy the things that you need. So the tip here really is that when you try to memorize new words in another language, try to learn them alongside the other words that usually go with it. This will help you to use those words correctly, and it'll make all of those words easier to understand and remember. 3. Make notes about context. When you come across a new word, take note of the context or the situation or background that you discovered that word. For example, if you see a big red sign in Chinese Mandarin and it's a new word for you, then later on you discover that that word is ting, which means stop. Next to that word in your notebook or in your flashcard, you can write down the context in which you saw that word. And here you can write big red sign on the road, and that will surely help you to memorize ting a whole lot faster. Now you're not just learning that word in isolation, you're drawing on your experience from a real life situation, which boosts your memory of ting. 4. Take photos of words in their context. If you're often exposed to new words from the language that you're learning because you get a lot of input from reading and listening, or because you travel or live within the country that speaks the language you're learning, then another tip is to take photos of the words that you see. This is another way to take advantage of the context of those words so that you can memorize new words a lot faster. For example, if you're visiting Rome and you've found a beautiful restaurant with nice seating outdoors, you take a seat and then you see a menu. There it says the words zuppa di cipolle, but you don't understand it and you want to learn it. Then I suggest you take a photo of that word within the context of that Italian restaurant. Later, you can look back at your photo and then look up the word and realize that it means French onion soup. And then you can add that photo next to that new word, zuppa di cipolle, in your notebook or your flashcards. And this visual context will help you to reinforce your memory of those new words. Now here are some resources where you can find words in sentences and context, so you can boost your memory of those new words. 1. Input. Read and listen to authentic materials in your target language, such as videos on YouTube, books, movies, music, and more. This is a very natural place for you to find sentences and context of new words. A problem you might find though is that with input, you'll have to wait to discover new words as you come across them. But if you have a specific word that you want to find a sentence or context on demand, then I suggest you try these next resources. 2. Dictionaries. Use dictionaries that include example sentences. There are a number of free online dictionaries available that you can search, and try and make sure that they include example sentences so that you can understand how the word is used. 3. Online word searches. Use search engines like Google in order to find words in context. Just type in the word in the search box and then you'll see a whole range of websites that refer to that word, and that word will often be in a sentence that you can learn from. You can also try the image search function and type in the word there. Now you'll be able to see images that are related to that word. Another place to do an online word search is the X platform. Go into the search bar and type in any word in any language, and once you search for that word, you'll find all different kinds of posts from people around the world using that word in their posts. 4. AI tools. You can use AI such as ChatGPT in order to generate example sentences for you. Just simply type, "Hey, ChatGPT, act like a professional teacher in this foreign language. Now write me some example sentences for this word, that word, and that word. And also give me the English translation." Then ChatGPT will do just that for you. I've done this myself a few times, but be very careful because ChatGPT can actually give you inaccurate results, and it can make up whole loads of language that is totally rubbish. So sometimes the other resources I mentioned can be a lot better. 5. Websites that focus on context-based learning. You can actually search up some websites that include example sentences, and when you type in a word, it will give you a whole list of different sentences in different languages that use that word. For example, there's lingue, I think that's how it's pronounced, and there you can type in a word and it will show you example sentences that use the word in context. 6. Ask a native speaker or your tutor. If you're really struggling with a word and can't find any good example sentences online, then you can ask a friend who is a native speaker or your tutor to then give you some example sentences of the words that you really want to learn. Now here's another bonus. I actually made a set of flashcards in different languages that include the 100 most common words. And for each of those words, the flashcard includes an example sentence so that new word is a lot easier to remember. This saves you time because you don't have to, 1, look up what are the most common words, and 2, you don't have to do the research to gather example sentences. I've done all that for you. Plus, you get the benefit of leveraging the power of spaced repetition flashcards to help you memorize this vocab. So go into the description and there's a link there where you can get these 100 most common word flashcards, different languages, and they all come with example sentences. Now, while using sentences in context can be a powerful tool to help you remember new words, there are some limits and we have to remember them. I came across some recent research that suggested that if you try and learn a new word in a sentence, but all the other words around it within that context are too unfamiliar and too difficult for you, then it can defeat the whole purpose. When there are too many unfamiliar words in a given sentence, you'll start feeling too overwhelmed, and that will reduce the effectiveness of this method of using sentences and context to boost your memory. What this means is that if you want to really take advantage of sentences and context to learn new words, then make sure that the sentences you use only have about 1 or 2 unknown words within it. What's even better is if you actually know all of the words within that sentence and it's just that new word that is the one that's troubling you. In the end, I believe that using sentences and context are a great way to remember new vocabulary in another language. But if that's still too hard for you because maybe you still don't even know the basic words, then be sure to check out this next video where I give you other tips about how to memorize new words even if you're still a beginner.